All right, I see the file. I got lots of notes, but actually I have to be quick with this. So hopefully the video won't be too long, but we'll see what happens. A lot happened in the chapter though, which is why there's so many notes. So I don't remember if it starts. I think it may in the Senate. So this is not more than an hour since the assassination attempt on Padme, and we get to see Palpatine being a master manipulator with his theatrics and such, with how he is the one who shares the news with the Senate. And at first, the way it's going there, it's like I can believe that he is directly behind it, because he is the Sith Lord and all that. It's like I can believe it, but later when she does appear in his shock, it's like he definitely was one behind it. That's a later note. The first note that I have is that it mentions he has run past his term limit, but that a series of crises have kept him in power. And I think this is interesting worth noting, worth talking about, because that already shows that the Senate and the Republic are not following their own laws. Which means that there's the easy argument to make, you're not a republic, you're a tyranny. Because you're ignoring your own laws because you just want, you're choosing this. I mean, it's, as I recall for American politics, it wasn't until FDR that the Washington tradition, and there's a specific name to it, but the tradition of Washington, George Washington, wasn't until FDR that was violated. Because George Washington could have continued to be president until he died. He was that loved by the people. But he decided, nope, 2 terms, that's it, I'm out. Because he did not want to become a dictator. And it was offered to him. So he was like, no, I'm out. And every president following him, until FDR, as I recall, I don't think that there was one before him, said, no, just the 2 terms. Then we had FDR, but also World War II, which arguably that makes some sense. But then it was later that we had the amendment that no, 2 terms of office, that's it. Yeah. So here it is you'd have to ignore the law for him to still be in there, which means, hey, the separatists could be saying, hey, you're already a tyranny. Get rid of him. I mean, and I could even see that being you get rid of him, then we will come and we can negotiate more. Because right now, you're not even following your laws. Why should we do anything with you? I mean, true. Technically, Palpatine is also controlling that side. But in theory, if you had some good faith separatists, they could be making that argument. But it's not in here because that wouldn't serve the purpose. And that's fair. That's fair. But it's still you could have that voice in there. That would be an interesting one. Another point like that is Dooku being a former Jedi should actually be weighing on the Senate with regard to this vote about making the military, making the army. Because some could be saying, well, he's leading the separatists, he's a former Jedi, the Jedi should have to deal with him, we shouldn't have to. Or no, we need the army because how do we know more Jedi won't turn? How do we defend ourselves from the Jedi? And so, again, more voices that could be heard. Likely won't because they don't serve the purpose, but they do serve the story as far as just building it out. And then I have the note on the manipulation. It does mention that Padme suspects, though she doesn't know why, that the assassination was by someone, was attempted by somebody who you wouldn't think would want her silenced. So, like the whole, it being the separatists, because she's against the army, which would serve their interests. Like, maybe having that as opposed to being somebody else, but when she is first thinking it, and she doesn't really want to say this out loud, she's even kind of acknowledging, could even be somebody in the Senate, still in the Senate, we know it would be Palpatine, but still in the Senate, who seemingly is against it, but just, wants her out of the way, and, so it is she has a sense that there is more intrigue going on than is obvious. And then she gets really stupid. No, like incredibly naive. Let me see if I can actually find it in here so I can get the quote. It might take me a moment, though. No, it's earlier than that, but that is part of it. Okay. I warn you, if you vote to create this army, war will follow. I've experienced the misery of war firsthand. I do not wish to do so again. To be fair, though, what happened in the Phantom Menace is really, really small. To be fair. I was like, that is not a large war, especially what she herself witnessed, which is basically her capture and then her with a small team going in and capturing the one dude necessary to end that conflict. The Gungans actually saw war, and even then that was a single battle. So but it's still the more, if you vote to create this army, war will follow. And I also want to read this, though technically I have two separate notes here. If we offer the separatists violence, they can only show us violence in return. This woman is an idiot. Okay, so if you vote to create this army, war will follow. It's like, if the existence of the army itself triggers the war, guess what? You're already in a state of war. Because the existence of the army just means you're prepared now for war. Now, if you are like, we're forming the army to attack, okay, now that's an actual act of war. But just the existence of an army is not an act of war. So this is a very naive statement there. Because it is exactly as if just the army existing, it would be like we have, you and your neighbor, you have property line dividing. You putting up a fence means that now they're going to start attacking you. That's not how that works. That means, no, that neighbor already wanted to attack you. And potentially already has been, which is more so the point with this. If we offer the separatists violence, they can only show us violence in return. Less than an hour ago, there was an assassination attempt. That's already violence, okay? You have violence. Where's the defense against this? Where's the response to this? It's not on these pages. So, yeah, it is one of those, no, you already have war. You're the idiot not realizing that. I mean, it's like I said before. The issue should not be the existence of the army. It's what the army's purpose is. I'm not fighting against the army. It's okay, let's come up with what can be useful. Let's figure out the laws here. Sure, we're ignoring some of the laws, but still, let's figure that out and move forward with that. And also, that would be a better political move because it's I can't stop this. There are good arguments for it, so let's at least try to control it. Okay. Then something a little later, and I'm just spotting a typo here, so I want to address that. But yeah, do their duty the Jedi will, Yoda says, and to be right here. Okay, no, it is one more page. Okay. So this is Yoda talking. Impossible to see the future is. Technically not true, but he's referring to the dark side clouds everything. So basically his acknowledgement that yes, there are, which that actually should be talked about as well. But anyhow, the dark sides cloud everything. But this I am sure of. Then it gives the ellipses, so he pauses there. Do their duty the Jedi will. A brief look of confusion came over the Supreme Chancellor, Palpatine. But before he could begin to respond to Yoda, a hologram appeared, so he's distracted. It's like, that I find interesting. So is that a hint that Yoda suspects Palpatine? I don't know. But it is still the dark side clouds everything. That should be, to some degree, a recognition that there are likely the Sith involved here. But there's not been any mention of that, so it's unclear if that's public knowledge. But it is also, if you want to try arguing, oh, well, the dark side is just, referring to the evil out there. It's like, oh, okay, then that should mean that the Jedi should have a greater acknowledgement of the dark side in general, including within them. And it's like, if it is just an existence, then that's a very different entity to deal with. Very different opponent, a moral opponent, an ethical opponent, not a physical one, than the Sith. So it's, yeah. But I think if we take it more as, no, this saying, yes, there's a Sith out there and all that, then that makes more sense. But then it's still, if you do that, then it does seem to suggest that Yoda is suspicious of Palpatine. A little bit after this, Padme asks Mace Windu about the whole, who do you think did And his response, Senator, we have nothing definitive, but our intelligence points to disgruntled space miners on the moons of Naboo. Spice miners, sorry. On the moons of Naboo. And it's like, wait a minute. Why do the Jedi have intelligence networks? I mean, I get the whole that it's kind of supposed to be the police, but it's like, the Jedi are kind of conspicuous. Like, you'd notice them. Okay? I mean, it's like the whole joke in a lot of television movies that it's like, somebody walking by, oh, hey, hi there. Because it's like, oh, you're the Fed that's been following me. Because it's like, how do you know that? Well, it's the shoes, it's the suit that you're wearing. It's like, this, how you carry yourself, all that. So it's like, how, and it also does make more sense that would be something managed by another group than the Jedi. That the Jedi are the peacekeepers, are the ones that would be there with the weapons to keep the peace, not the ones with the intelligence network. So yeah, I don't really like that. And that, I think, may have actually been said in the movie as well, but it's like I get to spend more time thinking about it as I read. Okay. Gonna skip one point, come back to it. It's a large point, I might ramble. But a couple things. One is, back in the prelude, I'd mentioned that it seemed like Obi-Wan was referring to Anakin as Ancien. No, apparently Ancien was the plan name. So he was basically saying that we're arriving at Ancien, but it was just never clarified in the prelude that that's where they were. So it's like, it seemed like he was just calling Anakin Ancien. So it's like, okay. That's just I have no idea what was going on. I was confused by why he would call him Ancien anyway, but yeah, so that is weird. But here it is, when Palpatine suggests that it can be Obi-Wan that protects her. He has just returned from a border dispute on Ancien. So this is in reference to Obi-Wan, not to Anakin, but they would be together. Oh yeah, it's also funny. So as the Jedi are leaving, because Padme and some others are going to be talking with the Chancellor, Yoda actually says to her, too little about yourself, you worry, Senator, and too much about politics. I just found that funny because, like, this is echoing what Sola had said. At this point, would be like 2 weeks and maybe a few days earlier to her. And it's like, even Yoda's telling you this, woman. Come on. Take the hint. Okay, so the last 2 points that I have, were there any that, well, yeah, kind of. So, the way the Jedi are defensive about Dooku, because he is the leader of the Separatists, I do think that's interesting and worthy of note, because it does show their pride, and therefore their fallen state, as I had mentioned even in The Phantom Menace, that like the existence of the Chosen One attacks them, because that means that there is somebody there that they need to be dealing with that they're not even aware of. And also the Sith have been gone for 1,000 years. It's like, well, that makes sense if it's there and you're not doing your job. So, and I think that you continue to see here, although Yoda does seem much more accepting of the idea that, no, maybe he is evil. Yeah, so she suggests, I think that Count Dooku was behind it, the assassination attempt. Brief stir of surprise rippled the room, and the 4 Jedi Masters exchanged looks that ranged from astonishment to disapproval. Milady, Mace Windu was saying, Count Dooku was once a Jedi. He wouldn't assassinate anyone. It's not in his character. Then Kiara Mundi, he is a political idealist, not a murderer. And then later, when they've left the room and Mace and Yoda are talking, it troubles me to hear Count Dooku's name mentioned in such a manner, Master, and from one as esteemed as Senator Amidala. Any mistrust of Jedi, or even former Jedi, in times such as these can be disastrous. Deny Dooku's involvement in the Separatist movement we cannot, Yoda reminded him, nor can we deny that he began in that movement because of his ideals. Mace argued, he was once our friend, that we must not forget, and to hear him slandered and named as an assassin, not named, Yoda said, but darkness this is about us all, and in that darkness nothing is what it seems. And then it's, continuing with more of Mace trying to defend him. And then also the whole, would the Separatists not wish Amidala well in her endeavors? So he's trying to think through that. But it is still, the whole defending of Dooku, it's a trouble. It's like they should be better at acknowledging that they themselves can be corrupted. that they are so prideful that, oh, we're the Jedi, we're just the good guys. That's what we are. It's like, no, that's not strictly how this works, guys. You can fall, and that they just assume because we're the Jedi, we're the good guys and we're incorruptible. It's like that's a prideful, and would be it is a sinful kind of pride as well. So yeah, this is seeing it written out is good in my opinion because it's, as I said, I got the theory that's the whole returning balance to the Force is, yes, you have to wipe out the Jedi as well because they are guilty of this kind of pride, of this kind of sin, and that is imbalanced, out of balance. So yeah, that theory makes me glad to see it there because it justifies the theory. But I will admit my theory could be wrong. It is just my theory. But yes, it still is a demonstration, though, even setting my theory aside, that the Jedi are not who they need to be here. They need to be accepting of the idea that no, Dooku could be doing evil things. And like the idea of just rejecting that outright is not going to help any scenario. I mean, that's not, you can agree, you can still say that Dooku's efforts are, and his actions are intended to be in good faith. That you can make an argument for. But that doesn't mean that his argument, that his actions and behaviors will always be good. Like, he could still be behind an assassination attempt because he genuinely believes that that will achieve some end. So, yeah, it's... I also find it a little interesting. It describes that he is a student of older Jedi philosophies and older lightsaber styles, which it actually describes as, like, more so thrusting and riposting than... so very forward and back versus more modern styles that are more circular. Which is actually kind of interesting when you think about it, because mechanically the lightsaber makes more sense to use as a, well, saber. Because the whole length of the blade is an edge, and it's an edge in all directions, all around. So your cutting surface is everything there. It makes sense to take full advantage of that with circular movements. Also stabbing at times, but using it that way makes a lot of sense. Whereas with just thrusting and riposte, then you're primarily focused on just the tip. So, and you're not using that edge so much. So it's like, I mean, it also makes a lot of sense to use this because that means that you can operate at this distance. Whereas if you're using the edge, true, technically any distance there, but you might be moving yourself closer to danger. So, a little bit of my fencing experience from long time ago. Let's just go with that. More than a decade. But a little bit of my fencing experience coming out there because the tip is what you care about. I mostly did epee, and that we only care about the tip. The edge of the blade means nothing. Saber, the whole length of it does, but it was actually funny. One reason why I actually did well against some people while using saber was because I kept hitting them with the tip, and it's like, well, I had 2.5 years of experience with epee, so I wasn't that good at epee, but it still brought something over to saber that made me effective. Yeah, so it is that I find interesting, his experience with the older stuff, but it does make me wonder then what significance that may have later on. Also, it occurred to me with the whole that both their pride about him and the concern I mentioned earlier that the Senate could have about, what if more Jedi fall? Why did only he turn? Because you'd think he would have influenced others. And I think in the movie they do have when Dooku is talking with Obi-Wan, like Dooku suggests that Qui-Gon would have joined him. I think that's not true, but the idea that he would be sympathetic, I think, is reasonable. Like, he would be calling out, potentially, the Jedi that, no, we can't just assume that because he was one of us, he is still inherently good. That, I think, would be a fair argument, that he would be sympathetic, but not, he would still oppose him. So, but why are there not others? It's getting in technical stuff, but Also, I'll be honest, some of this technical stuff, I like it and I want to explore it because that can be a lot of fun to me when I am writing. Not some technical stuff in what I'm currently writing, but in other stories, when I am thinking through, the technical stuff can be a lot of fun because now it lets me explore out more because there's more details there. Explore them out and what their meanings are. So, for example, with this, the idea of then being a band of rogue Jedi that serve Dooku that might not be going around and hurting anyone, but still might be disrupting within the Jedi Temple. This would actually be something very interesting, to explore their internal strife. Also, more with the Senate, where like even having somebody say when what did Padme say? If we offer the Separatists violence, they can only show us violence in return. If somebody had replied to her with, "They have brought us violence," like the assassination attempt, likely from them. And it doesn't make sense that it would be something smaller than that, especially for it to happen at Coruscant. So it's like somebody could have said that, and that would have provoked an immediate response from a lot of people. But not doing that because it's serving the point of the author's purpose of the story as opposed to serving the story. And that's kind of what I mean with I like technical stuff because you can start exploring these details, and that does technically serve the story if done right. If done well, it'll serve the story because it builds it out, it gives you more details. It also means that you got more things as the author to then explore, to play with, and potentially bring in and have more there. Yeah. Anyway, as I said, I got to be going for long, and this actually turned out to be not that long a video, so good on me. I do just want to quickly. Okay, so we're still. Well, that makes sense. That we are still at Coruscant because there's really nothing. No reason to be drawn away. All the main characters are now at Coruscant, except for Shmi and what was happening at Tatooine. But that I can't imagine we'll touch on until Anakin goes there. So, but yeah. So we'll be interesting. We'll get the reunion between them. And again, I find it odd the whole no one writes letters apparently to try to stay in touch. Yeah. Anyway, see you next time.